To crimp cover or not to crimp cover? That is the question. I'm Pam from PJG's Jewelry, and today I'm going to weigh the pros and cons of using a crimp cover versus not using a crimp cover. I will start with this pretty purple bracelet that I made. I love purple, it's my favorite color. I will do the traditional way of finishing a bracelet or a necklace. This will have no crimp cover on it. It will just be regular. First of all, I had my bead stopper attached to the wire so the beads wouldn't fall off. But these things always slipped out of my hand. I'll tell you something wonderful my husband did. He cut these little tubes and we put them on the end of the bead stopper. And it makes it so much easier to grip and hold on to, and they don't slip out of my hand. I love it. All right, traditionally, when you're finished, you will take your little spacer, we call them daisies, or my friend, remember, called them Daisy Dukes, and you put the little spacer on the end, and then the little silver ball, or my friend called them the dingle ball. You will take your crimp bead, put it on the end, and your lobster clasp. I'm going to use a lobster clasp here. Put it on. Bend the wire to go in the crimp bead. Pull it through. Then I will take my crimp tool and crimp that little crimp tube on there. Okay. Then we will hide the wire down in the bracelet, in the beads. There you go, it came out that little bead. Okay, we'll use our cutters. Cut. And that side of the bracelet is done. You would do the exact same thing on the other side. Put your little spacer, your little Daisy Duke, and your little dingle ball, your little silver ball. Then you would take your crimp bead, put it on. That's a little long, so I'm going to cut some of that off. And then my jump ring. Then take your wire and thread it down through your bead. Okay, scoot it all down, crimp cover and everything, and it'll be easier to pull the wire down. Sometimes I have to use my flat nose pliers and help pull. There we go, hope you can see that. Good. Then take my crimper, my crimp tool, and get on my crimp bead and crimp it and crimp it again. Take your flush cutters and cut that little piece off, and you're good to go. So that's the way I do 99.9% of my necklaces and bracelets. We'll do the crimp cover. For the crimp cover, I'll use the purple necklace that I made to go with that bracelet. You put the spacer on the end, but do not put the silver ball. Do not put the little dingle ball on there. Take your crimp bead, slip it on. I will use the lobster clasp on this end. So thread it on there. Bend your wire, stick it through your crimp bead. Here, sometimes I have to use my little flat nose pliers to pull that wire down. Okay. You want a little bit of space between the bead, between the crimp bead and the lobster clasp. Okay, and put your wires together. Take your crimp pliers and crimp your bead there. Okay. Stick your wire down in there in your spacer and in your bead. Okay. Take your flush cutters. Cut. Alright. Take the other end, move them down. Now, what we're going to do is we're going to put a crimp cover. That's what the crimp cover looks like. We are going to put it over the crimp bead so that it looks more finished, a little bit prettier. You place it over, hope you can see that, the bead, and then take your flat nose pliers and you will gently squeeze it shut over the crimp bead so it will cover it and it will look like the little silver ball that you put on in the bracelet, but you don't have to use a silver ball. Just put it on, put the cover over the crimp bead and gently squeeze it so that it stays in place. Okay? Then you'll do the same thing on the other end. You'll take off your little cover and your bead stopper. Remember, you just use your daisy. Put your crimp bead on there. That's what we'll be covering. And this time you'll use a jump ring. Put your wire through your crimp bead. Okay. Bring it on down. Take your crimp cover. Put it over they can be slippery, crimp bead, which is not wanting to go, of course. And sometimes that's the hardest part, just getting it over the crimp bead. But I think you understand what to do now. Take your flat nose pliers and again you will gently squeeze the crimp cover over the crimp bead. This is not wanting to cooperate, but I think you understand, you see what I'm trying to do, even though it's being a little slippery today and it's not cooperating. But take your crimp bead and crimp cover and squeeze it over your crimp bead and you will have a very pretty finished necklace or bracelet. See you next week. Bye.